Senator Bernard.
Thank you, Chair. I want to go back to a comment, Mr. McDonald, that you made earlier in response to one of my colleagues' questions. And that is, I wanted to talk about the whole notion of random testing and how random is it. And one of the things that I've had in mind is, we know about racial profiling and other types of profiling tied to this notion of randomness. And so I'm wondering, so you laid out very clearly how random testing is done, and I appreciated hearing that, but I'm wondering is that across the board? Is everyone doing random testing in that way? Or is there the possibility that some profiling might happen?
Thanks, Senator, for the question. I'll say I'm not an expert on random testing per se. I'm familiar with it because our organization has been doing it since 1995, like I said, and there's established protocols and software programs that really do this. And so what I'm familiar with, and I know that most of the companies that I've talked to would be in a similar situation, that it's really computer generated. There is no, certainly in our organization, some senior folks have come up time after time again, and they start to question why they're coming up, but it's truly random, right? The names go back in, you can get picked 3 times in a row. That's our experience with it, specific computer programs. I understand companies that I'm familiar with use similar type, so there is no racial profiling, there's no anything else that goes into it. It's just simply computer generated.
And is that the case throughout the industry?
As far as I know, but I can't speak for all industry.
In my previous employment, I was with a major international oil and gas company that worked across many different jurisdictions, and so I've worked a number of times in the U.S. and in the places where those were in place, they were all computer generated, usually by someone pulling it off the computer in the back room that didn't even know any of the people that were involved. So it's all very random in the ones that I've been exposed to.
Okay.
Do I have more time? I had another question.
You do.
Yeah.
You're the last speaker I have on the list, so
Okay.
go ahead.
A lot of times, a lot of the industries you're talking about are people who may be sleep deprived because of the nature of their work. And so I'm wondering, is that taken into account in your education programs and the plans and development of policy and so on around testing?
Yeah. That is one of, I'm very glad you raised it, Senator, because that is one of the things that we emphasize, I hesitate to say harp on, but the fact that impairment comes from many causes. Mm-hmm. And when we are doing presentations to industry groups about impairment programs and policies, we'll say things like there's cannabis, there's over-the-counter medications, there's alcohol, there's you have a new baby at home and you haven't been sleeping. There are many reasons why you might be impaired, and that's why we suggest focusing on the policies and procedures for identification and of impairment and what to do when someone is suspected of being impaired.
Thank you.
Sleep deprivation also come from working long hours, and in certain particular sector, because of the nature of the work, railway and other sectors, that people do work long hours. In some cases, the shift are 12 hours or more, so it depends on one's body's adaptation. You might be affected very differently versus somebody who has more stamina and, of course, ability to deal with sleep deprivation.
So, maybe just one final comment.
Okay.
Senator Bernard, you made a really good point about that. Our industry, the oil and gas industry, is really starting to focus on overall fit for duty. It's not just about drug and alcohol. This is about physically, psychologically ready to work in all ways, shapes, and forms. So people can have psychological problems or stress-related issues as much as sleep deprivation or anything else. So we're looking holistically at the individual. Are they ready and fit for duty?
Thank you.
Mr. McDonald?
Just one story. I know you're trying to wrap up, but I think, Senator, you raise a great point, and And we had made mention of the Nuclear Safety Commission, which has introduced regulations that are called fitness for duty regulations. And so there they've gone ahead with a whole suite of testing, including random. But once again, to your point about it is about fitness for duty, we manage the whole suite as best we can. But I wanted to highlight the fact that the Nuclear Safety Commission has actually got regulations that are entitled that. Exactly. Okay.